guys, and welcome to my podcast number 2 of female talent in the industry, how we got here, and also what we can do to promote it further. With Anoosh, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Awesome stuff. Thank you for having me. I'm the CRO of Zodia Custody. That is a institutional crypto custodian by Standard Chartered and an association with Northern Trust. Our unique value proposition is the fact that we are regulated. At the end of the day, we want to do things the right way. We want to serve our client base. And it's interesting because I used to work for a large bank. I moved into the crypto space because I slowly but surely started getting involved in some small kind of initiatives, a little bit of dabbling for myself, looking through at the Bitcoin prices back in the day, seeing Pizza Day, etc. So I got involved in a few projects back in City where it was really early days, just tracking it. From there, actually, a great member of my team, great guy, he moved over to where I am now, Zodia Custody, when it was still a venture. And at the time, pretty much we were helping set up desks in the office, getting the office space ready. We were literally part of that initial cohort of employees that was helping to set up this, literally. And it was an amazing jump moving from the institutional space to literally what was more of a startup that wanted to become institutional and get it rolling. So I have to say, getting involved in this space has been mind-blowing in terms of the shift in mentality that we've had to adopt.
And what would you say that shift in mentality is to adopt?
I think primarily it's been having that proactive go-getter approach to getting things done. There is no more reliance on teams in various different departments or someone else to do things. It's at the end of the day, getting together as a team, as a group, trying to understand where are we now and where do we need to get to, and basically doing all of the actions that you can together as a team to get there.
No, of course. And obviously where you came into banking, what would you say your sphere is within risk? Because clearly, as you've gone through, you've added elements to that, but where did you start to where you got to now?
Absolutely. So I used to cover business risk in Johannesburg in South Africa as part of Citi, which is the bank that I used to work at. Beyond that, I then got involved in the operational risk management space, and that was fantastic. And again, that opportunity came as a result of sponsorship by great mentors who were really invested in making sure that they gave female talent a chance. Where they saw a flickering light, they thought, you know what, I'm going to take a bet on her and let's see if she can do it. You know, it's someone basically taking that first step and opening up the door, which to me was incredible because that was almost the start of my journey in terms of not going through a standard graduate type of program in South Africa, but moving beyond and ending up forming a team in a completely different country in Northern Ireland, which was fantastic. And working on that and basically showing as well as a result of your work and your outputs that actually these labels, age, gender, etc. It's actually it's nothing, and it shouldn't be a barrier to success or to career advancement as well. And it should be seen as another type of element to bring to the door in terms of the values that you can add and the inputs that you can add as well. So it's been an interesting journey moving from first line type of credit risk in South Africa to more broader and more generic, I would say, enterprise-wide risk, which gave me a great broad sense of how a business worked from front to back. And then moving from there onto a more, again, a broad type of GRC, governance, risk and compliance role as well with Citi in London before I got involved in more crypto-specific projects and eventually took the plunge.
And how would you say from your background, how did that add to you being able to move over to crypto so effortlessly?
I think at the end of the day, I'll be honest about this, I think being in an industry that is so talented, that is constantly filled with a new protocol, a new use case, a new way of doing things, there's always a chance that imposter syndrome can appear, right? And I definitely go through feelings of imposter syndrome multiple times, right? And it's almost a case of saying, wait, am I good enough to be around all of these geniuses in the room? And it's about reminding yourself and having the confidence in yourself and being resilient at the end of the day to know that you absolutely deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And to understand exactly what your outputs are and how transferable many skills are. I feel like that background, I came from a risk background and I'm still in a more risk background, but a lot of my responsibilities as well, it involves a familiar knowledge, a really intimate knowledge of what goes on front to back in the business. And without that, I wouldn't be able to do my job properly at the end of the day. So again, like this is one journey. There are so many journeys into crypto.
Oh, yes.
And I feel like it's an awareness that the path is there. You don't actually need to have a background in crypto to be successful in it.
No.
Things like that, you could absolutely learn on the go, on the job. And in addition, you can do your own kind of inputs into that as well and expand your own knowledge base, but it should never be a barrier to get into the space.
And I couldn't agree with you more when it's, put what your outputs bring outcomes almost. And by rather than streamlining yourself into a particular area, saying, actually, no, this interests me. I want to know all of it and I want to know more and I want to understand it. You're not going to be an expert in everything.
Exactly.
But you're going to have an understanding and also showing their ability to have the agility across all of those is a benefit. And it also provides, the direction that you're able to go in, but opens a lot more doors. And it also shows I don't think I've met someone with a background in crypto who's got into crypto. Everyone's just swum into it because it's something which is innovative, it's fast paced, and people really like that. They like the excitement of it.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, I think it's really important to challenge yourself. I would personally get bored if everything was just the same day after day after day. Exactly. So I feel like stimulating yourself with people that are brilliant around you, stimulating yourself in terms of things going on in the industry, left, right, and center, making sure you're on top of them is really important and kind of a draw as to why I entered the space as well.
Amazing. And how would you say it's the institutional side of it has adapted to crypto? Because obviously we know it's always been just retail-based customers like me in my front room like this. But how would you say companies and what is their appetite towards actually getting into the crypto world?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think you've seen so many changes over the past 18 months, let alone the past 6 months post FTX. It's gone. I think it's fair to say that crypto is here to stay as an asset class. It's gotten quite a bit of a bad rep. It's almost like the C word. Don't mention crypto. Always say digital assets. But at the end of the day, I think we are all cognizant of the fact that the asset class is here to stay. Institutions, going back about 18, 24 months now, you've seen the likes of banks invest significant amounts in ventures, for example, or partnering with various other technology companies as well to develop some kind of in-house solution. And even if those solutions aren't live yet, in many cases, the building blocks were there. And all of that was almost a defensive play, so that once the regulation comes in, and I think even just from this week, we've got the HMC paper that's come out, the consultation paper on crypto, which is a significant body of work that's been done by the UK to almost cement our position in this country as a crypto hub. So in a nutshell, it's fair to say that with upcoming regulation, especially, I see the next 2 years booming in terms of institutional adoption.
Oh, amazing. And I suppose from where you started within banking and kind of came through to the crypto space, digital assets, how would you say, what's been the biggest change for you from both sides of the fence?
So do you know what's interesting? As I rewind back a couple of years now, I think about when crypto first started becoming mainstream from a retail perspective and from a consumer perspective. And immediately all risk committees within banks, they were kind of sparking red. This is a new emerging threat, a new emerging risk, something that you need to take care of. And the limits that were set were very harsh. And I mean, fair play, volatility has been quite substantial. So you can understand why those limits were put in place. I would say that the biggest shift for me, especially moving from a banking background where I used to work to something that's more of a startup type of environment, has been that shift in mentality, I would boil it down to say it's the ability and the acknowledgement that you need to take accountability and you need to make decisions and you need to make them quickly. You can't fall back on a committee making a decision or taking it through layers and layers of governance, which to some extent absolutely serves its purpose. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest takeaway I had was to adopt more of an agile type of mentality and approach.
It's really, really important. You see it with every fintech or digital asset and cryptocurrency business. In banking, they're set up, they're established, they understand the industry and we understand them. So there's stringent processes and procedures, but also strict regulations on them too. If you move over to something which is a startup in that particular space, no 2 days are ever the same. The regulators have a grey area on how do we regulate these and what are they, but also the ability to say, okay, I have to now create the processes and create the procedures and they need to change day to day, which, as you say quite right, is the agility behind it in order to actually succeed in that type of environment. So if you look at it from moving into the crypto side and also probably taking more of a holistic risk approach, where is the challenges sitting?
I would say right now, a lot of those and when I say right now, literally hot off the press, this week, the past month even, we've seen so much regulatory push and more of that clarity is now becoming evident. So many of the fears that crypto native companies had are now becoming realized, because you can see that, for example, in the UK at least, we're moving towards a model that replicates client assets and segregation of client assets, or CAS principles. And again, you see that those are things that companies such as Zodia, for example, other companies have always done that purely because that has been our banking background. And I think it's also been really interesting to see the fact that as we go through and as we've had more and more clarity, the awareness amongst the institutional space that obviously not all crypto assets are equal. They have very different characteristics, specifications at the end of the day. And I think it's been fantastic seeing that clarity come in as well, in terms of how various different regulators globally see them and how they characterize them, and whether some need additional capital in order to justify the holdings of those assets, for example, or not, to make sure that there's no harm at the end of the day to consumers in the event of a wind down.
Yeah, no, that's probably the biggest thing that they think about is, if we are to invest in this from an institutional perspective, how safe is it? How much of the custodian could actually keep it and have the loyalty there rather than losing it? Because you see it, and we've seen it beforehand with crypto, where people have lost an unbelievable amount of money because they've lost their phone or they've forgotten their password. And so then it's almost shifting the mindset to actually know that's what happens when we look at it from retail, but now we're regulated and we have both in one. This is how we can actually operate and turn. But because it's been known for so long like that, it's hard. But as you rightly said, crypto is here to stay. The evolution of blockchain and Web3 and the technology advances behind it is just mind-blowing.
It is.
If you think about how many companies are looking at implementing blockchain into their technical sphere, but there's so much to it. How do you even use all of that in a day-to-day operation?
There's so many use cases, and I think in some cases, some areas have almost just become involved because of FOMO, right? And you think about it, and you think, okay, maybe you didn't need blockchain for this. A database would have worked just as well. But moving more towards actually legitimizing the digital asset space, right? It's so important what you said, just in terms of these everyday type of risks, right? Which, losing your phone, for example, losing access to your private key, even in the institutional space, it is really important when making decisions. Obviously, these kinds of decisions, they would be a significant asset base, right? When making these decisions, even the ways that crypto custody is done at the end of the day, whether it's a multi-sig approach, whether it's cold wallets, hot wallets, there are so many factors there that really should be set out in a scorecard and evaluated thoroughly, because again, I'm sure many of us have seen through a lot of the exchanges going bust in the past 6 months again. All of those assets that were held on exchange on those hot wallets at the end of the day, The moment the exchange goes down, that's it. A significant chunk of assets under custody, exactly, just wiped off the market. And that's, at the end of the day, what led us to the crypto winter last year.
Yes, and I think that came frosty.
Most definitely, exactly.
Lots of people would
Yeah.
oh God.
Yeah, and now you're kind of seeing in the prices of, at least of Bitcoin and ETH, they're slowly but surely making their way to the green. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, I think exactly like you said, to emphasize, we need to treat this like a real asset class. We need to legitimize it, and the right way is through regulation, is through doing the right thing. And that's where I think we are seeing a shift in the industry as well, towards more of this kind of compliant type of approach.
And then touching across compliance, how would you say from the CBA and FCA perspective, how they've adapted to more of an institutionalized crypto in terms of regulatory compliance and also the risk element of it?
It's been really interesting. I'd say in both cases, there was a significant period involved, and kudos to them where credit is due, a significant period of learning together with institutions. So for example, the FCA did a couple of crypto and tech sprints last year. I know they've got more in the agenda for the year ahead. They've done a lot in terms of, and to be fair, all of us are educating ourselves as we go through. Exactly. And I think that's where collaboration and true value actually comes out. So they've been working on that. They've been obviously looking at traditional finance principles and seeing how and if it makes sense to amend those then to fit into, for example, trying to manage and regulate DLT, or at least if we focus in specifically on the crypto space and the players within the crypto space, because again, there are so many areas there that are truly that they need the guidance, they need the clarity in order at the end of the day to protect market integrity, which if at the end of the day a tweet can send the price of a token up or down by more than 100%, I mean, again, that just loses the kind of viability or the feasibility into that market.
And like you say, it's a new market, so it is learning together. The FCA didn't see crypto until crypto came out, and then it's, okay, how does it work and what does it work? You tell us, and you also tell them exactly what needs to do and what needs to be put in place. It's a risky market, but it's also one which is actually really exciting and really fast coming, and it's going to be something which will take over primarily a lot of the market.
Absolutely.
Get it from an asset class to being treated as an actual asset.
You're so right. And just on that point, like you said, there is so much value beyond crypto and crypto custody. There's so much value in the blockchain. Looking at things like tokenization that you were referencing just a moment ago as well. And you're seeing many players get into the game actively on that, again, pending the treatment of that, right?
It was like a little toe dip to begin with.
Exactly.
People are starting to actually jump in, which is nice to see. But you do hear more people, because we obviously work with people who aren't regulated, so there is still retail, but even they're looking at, okay, well, how can we be attractive to institutions? And clearly Zodia has done it with Standard Chartered, which is great to see. Still brings the element of risk, and within this industry, and you've probably seen it, bringing in talent can be tricky, but also retaining talent. Because of how chop and change the market is, it's rolling with the punches, as they say. But how would you say you've seen it in terms of talent coming through the door and also, more importantly, diversity?
That is such a great question, because I think sometimes as a hiring manager, you are expecting the candidate to come through that magically and quite honestly, miraculously, is the best salesperson, at the same time has the technical understandings of the Ethereum developer, for example, and at the same time has a multitude of skills to be able to link all of these things together. I would say that this space overall, the moment that you become complacent and think you know it all, that is, honestly, that is to your detriment. That is done. It changes so quickly, which is part of the allure and challenge behind why someone would want to be involved in this space and in this industry in the first place, right? Trying to understand the different use cases, trying to understand at the end of the day, with a specific use case that may be incredible, what are the drawbacks of that, or what are the potential loopholes in that may be exploited by bad actors? So I think it's really important in terms of getting more talent, number one, aware, number two, just setting our expectations in terms of knowing that you are going to come together on a learning journey at the end of the day. And someone may not be perfect in all areas, but you're there to work with them, to coach them. And exactly on the point of diversity, I feel like as well, for many women, it's been really, and not just looking at it from a gender lens, but from multiple different lenses as well. When you don't see that representation, when you don't see that proactive effort to get you involved, to make you aware, obviously from the start of the career life cycle, right? It becomes very difficult to then get your foot in the door and established, and then through to that angle.
And it's true, if you don't see it in the industry being promoted, or seeing that, people like yourself, CROs, women, and like in senior leadership positions of these types of businesses, maybe it's hard for the mindset to shift to say, okay, no, this is something which I can do.
Exactly.
This is something that I can adapt to. And no one knew blockchain or crypto until they've done it.
Yep.
So there is the element of being able to transition from banking to cryptocurrency and make it a huge success.
Absolutely.
So when hiring for your team, how have you found it in terms of being able to diversify?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that we've implemented, because you'll see across the industry, there's so much jargon thrown about. Sometimes there's a new protocol with various different uses, which at the end of the day, if you boil it down into simple, non-technical language, so that everybody is on the same page or on the same journey understanding, it's very simple to understand. And I think many people have hidden behind the use of these kinds of like jargon or technical terms to be quite exclusionary. So we tried to take a more inclusionary approach. At the end of the day, we want to make sure our people are first. Our people have constant access to develop themselves and learn within crypto, but also beyond crypto as well, working on various different strategic initiatives of themselves as well and challenging themselves. And we've tried to put that forward, those learning and development opportunities, those diversity initiatives and inclusion initiatives that we have with our firm to act as a positive attractor, like a pull factor towards why someone would want to be involved with Zodia Custody specifically, right? Because I think the crypto space is a really sexy space at the moment. A lot of people want to move out of traditional finance to get into it. A lot of people, even from various different backgrounds, I feel like they all have so much value to add.
Yes.
And the lack of knowledge, that should not be something, that shouldn't be a barrier to stop you entering a career in crypto. I truly believe that with learning on the job and obviously equipping yourself with that resilience and having that passion to find out more, understand how protocols work, understand how custody works, for example, understand how the whole ecosystem fits together, all of it at the end of the day, with that effort, with having that chat for 5 minutes with someone who's willing to discuss a topic with you, right? That those would all act together and remediate that barrier and get more people into the space.
Within it, I would say some of the smartest people, and everyone in that seems to be so smart and so senior from all walks of life. It is the most inclusive industry you could be a part of. But because you're starting in something which is so small, the exposure to these people are there, and it's far greater than it would be if you went to anywhere else. So being able to come in, is it intimidating to work alongside people who have done all of this throughout their career and bring CROs and CEOs and multiple businesses? But then it's also looking, actually, think how much you can learn from that.
Exactly.
They've moved from this to that. The knowledge that they have, the processes that they've been a part of, and also what they've seen is far greater and far more valuable than if you was to go into a massive, great big corporation.
Absolutely. And I think that as well, the pure exposure, when you work for a large organization at the end of the day, I think for many people are ambitious. They want to progress their career. They want to move into different departments. They want to get that sense of exposure as well to that knowledge, to that understanding, have that ability to speak, like you said, connect with various different partners at a senior level, to speak in front of regulators. When you think about it as well, you're really pulling your sleeves up when you move to a smaller type of firm as well. And you realize very quickly that actually there are no teams in charge of doing a specific task. Like you actually have to go ahead and do it together as a team. And that's where I think you move out of this bubbled type of approach into managing a business, and you move into more of a, okay, what are we going to do to make this company as a whole succeed, as opposed to my department.
And decision making as well. It's okay, I can't just go to here to here to here. Okay, we've got 5 yeses, so it must be a yes. It's okay, well, it's me, myself, and I. I need to do it, but then it brings the experimental side, because it's an industry where they praise failure. Because you're allowed to fail, but just fail and then learn fast and come back and try it again. It's not where, okay, you failed, leave. It's a lot of test and try, which is really nice to see.
You're spot on with that, and I think it links back as well to your earlier point about mentality differences as well. It feels like in larger corporations, it's do not fail. Whereas when you move to more of the crypto space as well, because everything is evolving as we go, I think it's an acknowledgement that yes, you will make wrong strategic decisions, you will fail. It's about how you react to that failure again together as a team, and then learn quickly and move on for that, and make sure that you don't repeat that same failure and you implement changes to improve it. And I think that's one of the starkest differences as well.
But then it also brings the innovative side of you're actually able to do that. And it's rather than having an idea and that's it, let's have an idea and put it to the test. It's going to work out or it's not going to work out, but you've tried the idea. And that does bring a sense of achievement as well as acknowledgement to people, particularly if they're new coming into the industry, which is, as I say, really nice to see. But what would you say motivates you most about being in crypto, and what has challenged you the most about being in crypto?
I would say it's quite interesting because it's almost the two sides of the same coin, right? Yeah, I feel like on one side that one of the biggest draws for me has just been being surrounded by incredibly talented people who are so intelligent in each of their respective domains, and who are also very open in terms of open and welcoming in terms of sharing their knowledge. It feels like you have so much more access to these genius minds within this industry, as opposed to, for example, traditional banking, where we were talking about exposure earlier. You really don't have that same kind of access, and it almost feels like a CEO of a bank to another CEO of a bank conversation, or like the one downs, the executive suite, those organizations, which are massive. So being part of this industry, there is so much proactivity, there is so much desire to continuously improve. And I mean that genuinely. You look at various different institutional providers that are out there, you look at token issuers, you look at the protocols and the blockchains themselves, and they're constantly undergoing change. And that has been, to me, really inspiring. Just being able to, at the end of the day, we all form our own views and our own knowledge base. Being able to pick from the best minds, not only within my team, but more broadly within the industry as well, across the board, from clients all the way through to our partners, all the way through to regulators. That's been the biggest draw for me. And at the same time, I think the challenge has been constantly keeping up with all of the changes.
Talk about a day where you're like, I can't do this anymore.
Absolutely. There is so much to monitor. There's so much risk and reward to balance. And I think that's why as well, I was referencing earlier on, just in terms of time to make decisions. It's really important to take the appropriate amount of time to make decisions, and to have the right information at your fingertips in order to come up with a decision. And that decision may be wrong, but at least it's the best decision you could make based on the data that you have at that time. One of the things that's tough is that when things are constantly changing, it almost feels like you're taking one risk so that you avoid another. But obviously there you're looking and thinking, okay, which risk is lower? Okay, this is within appetite, fantastic. It's almost that need to constantly stay on top of your game, which is great. It's very inspiring from that sense. But also it's really important that out of that comes a clear articulation of what is risk, what is reward, and where are you willing to actually... Exactly. And it's a thing many firms struggle with, because if you can't articulate that clearly, at the end of the day, you may struggle, especially in the institutional space, you may struggle with having an inappropriate product and market fit. And then in that case, you're not really serving any market. And, you know, from a viability perspective, your business isn't there.
No, of course. And obviously, like we referenced earlier and everything that we've just gone over, there is still a massive differentiation of female talent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there anything that you would say to influence, or not just influence, but that we could do differently to promote that?
I think it's a case, and I've been really pleased, even in the past week, to see the president of Ripple now is a woman.
Yes.
And at the same time, you're seeing, I think it was even yesterday, from a more kind of institutional perspective, the head of digital assets in BNY as well, she's female. It's incredible to see these kinds of things. And I think it's really important that at the start of the journey, from a hiring perspective, you're making a proactive effort to look for female talent. I think it's unacceptable, even just on a candidate roster, not to have female talent included in there.
Yeah.
It is undoubtable that there are so many individuals with so much talent that are out there. And sometimes I feel like excuses come in the way and stereotypes come in the way, which is honestly, again, it's an educational thing.
Yeah.
So I think that more education is needed, more awareness, at the end of the day, more proactive efforts as well in the industry to first of all go out and look for talent and bring on talent and diverse talent.
Yeah.
And then when you have that diverse talent through the door, things like mentorship programs, internships as well to universities targeting underserved populations, right? And minority groups as well, and various different diverse intersections of the population. And it's about promoting those and making sure that people have access in the first place to get involved. And when they're in, you can look through programs such as, like I said, mentorships. You can have closer types of sponsorship arrangements as well to make sure that at the end of the day, people are moving, not just in the beginning or early stages of a career, but also consistently, exactly, and into leadership positions, and making sure that at the end of the day, women, diverse opinions matter. They add value. It is factually proven that having different thoughts and different ways of thinking across the room is a benefit, and everyone comes in with their fresh background, their fresh perspective. And I feel like many decisions, or many wrong decisions, could be averted if that additional perspective was there.
It's all walks of life, as you mentioned, coming together, but having those different mindsets. Everyone in crypto puts their own opinion forwards. It's not like they're sat at a table and it's one person, this is it, this is what we do. It's having the encourageability to do it, but it's also nice to see now educational universities are starting to add blockchain technologies into classes and actually showing the element of what that means to the industry, and accepting that this is part of the industry now, and showing that to people from a young age. But then it is letting them in the door, but not just doing that. How can we retrain them? How can we move them to a different part of the business if they want to learn more? How can we continuously promote personal and professional development in a workplace so we can retain female talent all the way up to leadership positions and help them get there from a mentorship, educational advances, and also just exposure.
Exactly. And that, I think it's so important that that's done internally within the context of the workplace, and also from an industry perspective as well. And I feel like the duty is also on us as women to empower one another and to kind of bring everyone up the ladder to enjoy the success. So there's a number of institutions or groups rather that are out there as well, where they're communities for women in crypto. And again, it's shout outs on things like that. It's making sure that at the end of the day, there is space to be heard and that voice is amplified as well.
No, I completely get it. So obviously it's been really, really great to go over your career, what's got you to where you are today, what the future is of Zodia, and also where it's come from, which all sounds really, really exciting, but more importantly, how we can look to diversify from senior leaders all the way through to junior people coming in and what we can do as an industry to make it better. If there was one last thing you had to say, what would it be?
Do you know what? I think it's really important at the end of the day to emphasize that crypto, honestly, it shouldn't mean compromise. So to all of the I wouldn't say naysayers, but to all of those that are hesitant looking at it, it shouldn't mean compromise. That doesn't mean that all crypto, all providers are the same. It's really important to have stringent sets of guidelines for how you want to go about getting involved in crypto, which I think we agree that is here to stay. And then it's about basically working together as a team with a diverse set of minds, opinions, backgrounds at the end of the day in order to achieve that objective. And I would welcome as much diverse talent into this space and promotion of diverse talent, and at the end of the day, amplifying voices and letting everyone be part of the journey. I think it's an exciting one ahead.
Yeah, it's definitely one to get a part of now, rather than, as she said, FOMO earlier. In a couple of years' time, it's like, damn it, it could have been me.
Absolutely.
But look, it's been amazing speaking today. Thank you for being a part of the podcast.
Absolutely.
And hope to see some really good things for Zodia.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. Thank you.